Today's episode of Be Alive is brought to you by Mother Mary's Spiritual Goods. Based in the high Chihuahuan Desert of Marfa, Texas, offering handmade spiritual products and readings to help you manifest your intentions. I personally have had a reading with founder Amanda Holstein, and I have this little paper that I drew from the reading with each of the cards that she pulled and then what she read for each of them about my future. And I've literally, in the past year since that reading, have been checking it off. Okay, this has come true. This has come true on this 8-card reading that she did for me. So I can't recommend not only her products enough, but also absolutely her readings. So for handmade spiritual and manifestation goods, as well as her incredible readings, go to marfatarot.com, MARFA tarot.com, and use promo code KATE20 to receive 20% off your first order. Put your hand on your heart, look up at the sky, smile and say, hey, I'm alive. Thanks for being alive with me today.
Life, death, and being alive. What does that even mean? Do we have the perspective in our daily life to understand what it means to be alive? What are the opportunities that affords? Being alive, the process of living ongoing, it's like this 24-hour process, right? It doesn't stop. And it's overwhelming to be able to do that and not get totally sucked into all the stories, all the experiences you have, and take them very at face value, think you understand what things mean. But then if you look more carefully at what your interpretations are of your interactions, your relationships, importance of your work in the world, and you take the time and have processes to back that out a little bit, it's not so clear that we really are living freshly all the time, right? We're building up layers of interpretation and then acting out of those. And this is not for me originally at all, but something I discovered through science as well. The world becomes this mirror of what we already believe, a self-reflecting, self-reinforcing mirror, like the Vedanta teachings teach us about karma and all that. So what's interesting about this work in Synchronicity now is that it's rooted in a language of Western physics, which is practical and useful in many ways. It's new, but it's really rediscovering these things that we've known for a long time. Many traditions already knew.
Yeah, and going back to the life, death, and feeling alive, that's what really spoke to me about your work is this, this notion, especially in your latest book, about all of these filters that we have. I think part of them are by choice, part of them are from our neuroplastic atmosphere in our brain. And for me, when I wake up and realize oh, I got the privilege to wake up again this morning, I'm alive. I get to look at the sky. I'm looking out the window because I get to see the sunlight.
Yeah.
I don't know. I call it being in the washing machine of life, which is that squirrel where I'm oh my God, I got to do laundry and I gotta call this person. I got to do this email thing.
The
But
washing machine.
this, yeah, the washing machine of life. It's like dentist appointments and sweepings. and, and it's not easy to get into that that positive filter, but remembering that I'm alive, that I'm not dead is one way that helps me zoom out and get on the high vibration that you speak so well of in your work.
Yeah. And what would that really mean? What would you do if you knew that this was really happening and fresh and it wasn't a recreation of a story in your head? I'm not sure what would be different. I'm not sure that you would go out yelling from the rooftops or something would be clearer than it had been before. The projects that I'm doing right now, which is guiding my self-image and my understanding of what's important, this has been true for a while, but it comes and goes, is the political world and how our values are showing up and how our decisions and our ways of being are reflecting at the national stage. disagreements we have with people, which really reflect disagreements with ourselves, judgments we make of people that are based upon very little information. And my sense is that, what would we do if we knew that that was urgent? Because it doesn't feel urgent on a daily basis to me. I'm got the washing machine going on, and I can't see on a daily basis where things are going. I react a lot to what's happening right now, what I read in the news, what just happened. But can I see some context or gain some perspective so I can see what's coming next? And then the choice would be to realize that you're alive and you have some choice over how you proceed into that next moment. That might involve taking some risk, speaking to somebody about something that you really wanted to say, or talking to people. Right now, what I'm doing is setting up an event for phone banking, make calls to people in other states, other counties, and doing that with people in my social circle. So reaching out to people I know and asking them to join me, which is terrifying. It's funny how terrifying it is. And here's the other piece. It's like this whole package. Like, I've committed to this goal of doing this event, which brings up a whole bunch of my own challenges. How do I respond when I'm under pressure? Do I remember my goals, or do I sort of get sucked into side conversations? Do I overreach and try to get something much bigger than I can achieve? Or do I, like, at the expense of being successful? All of these things are very much happening for me in this process, which are repeated in my life. So what I'm studying now and just published a paper on is the way time is not just a straight line. And this is in the book. I'm sure you remember this, but it actually repeats itself. We come back to the same moment again and again. And like an example of this would be, it can be on a daily basis. It can be very short cycles of, like, last week I was in this space of, well, like a moment. We have to define what a moment is. If you think about time as linear, every moment is different. You never repeat the same thing. But if you think about, like, a meaningful experience you've had, like graduating high school, that experience of, I'm done with all my work. I get to just rest in the accomplishment and let in the appreciation from my family and friends and feel like this achievement is complete. That's a certain experience. And that only happens once a couple times in your life. Like, maybe it happens in college, if you go to college, or when you get a new job, you have this experience. So for these moments, you drop into, what is the feeling like I'm having? How does that define a moment in my life? When have I had this feeling before? And by doing that, we can identify the meaningfulness of the arc of our lives. Where am I in my arc? You know what I mean? And that gives us some perspective. Allows us to see, I'm not just on, was it Monday, June 8th or July 8th? I'm not just on this day. I'm in this process of a cycle. And the cycle that I'm in right now is 30 years ago, I did my first kind of personal growth workshop. And I was challenged to invite some people to enroll in a workshop with me. Right? I had to go out to my community of friends and enroll them in joining me in this process that I felt was important. You're like, that's how it feels. And my eyes were big, and I thought, I can do this. This is totally my thing. I want to spread the word of joy and skyness. So I said, I'm going to invite 10 people. And it was a 3-month process. I had 3 months to do this. And in that process, all these things came up in my self, my psyche, of, how do I really get vulnerable with people? When people are saying no, they don't want to come. They don't have the money, don't have the time, don't believe it's useful. How do I face that? What's my response to that? And I feel I'm clearly not actually as vulnerable or connected as I thought I was. I learned that through the process. So I did get one person out of got one, and she now
Wow.
is. So
She's
I
now your
married the
wife?
person. Yeah.
Oh,
So there's something about me that's like really big visions, but end up having really personal, meaningful, life changing experiences.
wow.
And
Oh my
it's just
goodness.
seeing that now, you know.
What an interesting arc in and of that. And yeah, that idea of the repeating nature of time, it is it's like we get another chance. Whereas it's just like all of these grains of sand in the past. Whereas if we can start to see these patterns in, you gave the example of learning how to be vulnerable. We can start to connect all these opportunities that we've
Mm,
maybe failed to be vulnerable, had
yeah.
success, maybe got halfway. And then there's a story there as opposed to all these isolated incident yeah, that concept that you lay out really touches my heart, and it adds a sort of weight to the experiences of my life.
Yeah. And you just said it really well that I hadn't really named very well myself, which is the experience of learning to be vulnerable is a moment in time, a moment in being alive. We can look at our lives and say, oh, that was a moment where I was learning to be vulnerable. And that was another moment I was learning to be vulnerable. And those are all the same moment. It's the same experience we're having inside. And the world around us is adjusting and different every time, right? And people might be different. The room we're in is different. The job we're in is different. So just like a theater, the setting changes, but there's this meaningful element which defines reality, which is repeated. It's in common. So I guess that brings us back to context. How do we have perspective to understand how this moment is relevant to us in our journey and not miss the key points that are relevant to us in our journey because we're just looking at what are the washing machine needs for the day. Get up and get my hair done and get my food and get my kids to school. But there's a beauty in how all those things play into our lives. And we had, like I said before the call started, my daughter, who's now 15 as of yesterday, is plays this role in my life of bringing me pure joy, which I never realized I needed, you know? But now there's like, I didn't realize that the work I do, which is obsessive, like I get completely immersed in it, is not fulfilling personally in the way that being with my daughter is. And how was I to know that that was even possible? That I needed that. So there's just this pure experience of joy and appreciation that I have with her. And there's a sense of non-attachment. I'm unattached. So it's like the payoff of all my inner work on myself, trying to be unattached in the world, comes with my daughter, who I just get to really experience as her and not be caught in the cycle of who I expect her to be. Super, super proud of that.
You should be. That's really beautiful. I think there's a lot of us that have these filters, as you talk about in your work, that say, parenting is hard. Parenting is a struggle. My work is hard. My work is a struggle. And so to me, it sounds like to grossly simplify, there's three ways of being. There's the way of being in the negative filter story. There's the way of being in the positive filter story, and then there's the non-attachment. And so it sounds like in parenting, you're in this non-attachment experience of being a parent and when you're with your daughter, but you do have this story now of parenting is joyful, being a dad
Mm-hmm.
and my daughter bring me joy, but you've left the third one, parenting is hard, parenting is a drag, away. And so I wonder, and you're the expert on synchronicity, that story of parenting is joy, my daughter brings me joy, along with the non-attachment, how that colors the experience in your life now and in the future.
Wow. It feels great to think that that's the model. I've let go of the negative identification with with that relationship. I think that these relationships play a role, right? So for me, there's meaning to each interaction we have, to each relationship. And the role that she plays is necessary for Sky, for me as a person to be happy. And being happy, I'm learning, this is part of my own meaningful journey. Being happy is a resilience strategy. Like, I don't have to be happy to get my work done, to make a change in the world, but to persist in doing that work and get up again when I make mistakes. I can feel my heart racing when I say that. Like, that's the moment when I need some happiness. When I don't make a goal or meet a deadline that I had for myself or that someone else had for me, I see my world being impacted by that negatively. I get into stories around perfectionism and doing it myself, judgments of inadequacy, and I haven't done enough. I got to do more. Got to do some. What can I do? It's always this question of what should be done, right, in order to fix the situation I'm in. And so, being happy, which is something I've sort of poo-pooed, like it's not serious enough until my daughter came along. But being happy is a strategy of resilience, because when I'm happy, I get up and I'm like, oh, that was funny. I totally failed on that delivery right there. And but I don't feel judged right now because I'm happy. And looking around me and I don't see anybody judging me. I don't take on a layer of judgment myself and project that onto myself. And I feel happy from my life being the way it is with my daughter and my family. And that allows me to look with some greater perspective, zoom out and say, okay, given that I'm still alive, what am I going to do next? And how am I going to look at my values and see what's still a value when I clear away all the daily washing machine stuff, to use that metaphor.
Mm. I'm seeing this like paper right now in my mind, and it's like someone is in a really challenging thing in their life. It could be being a parent, it could be work related, it could be, but it's like this trial that somebody's in, and they're like, how could I possibly be happy in this? How could I possibly find a silver
Mm.
lining? And I'm just seeing this paper where it's like, you just got to write it down and like, what are the possible ways that I could be happy in this? And almost just like brainstorm it to find something. Do you think that there is a way to be happy and or find meaning in any of the trials of our life? Because that's the sense I'm hearing from you, is that that choice to be happy as the strategy of resilience, as you so beautifully say. Have you ever not been able to find that silver lining or that usefulness in a trial of your life?
Well, a friend helped me see recently that it's not maybe happiness all the time, but tranquility, being at peace. So a big insight for me has been, as I've done work on self-love, which to me means recognizing the ways in which I am not being kind to myself in a situation. So as I've become aware of those moments and I realize I don't need to be judgmental of myself, I don't need to be the one that says, you should have done better at this, if no one else is saying that. What I've come to see is that it's like looking at the world with different eyes. It's still me, but the world looks different. What we want to do with our lives is different from how we feel about ourselves and our role in our actual quality of our own life. So we might be experiencing suffering, loss. It doesn't mean, for me, there's this association with like being a bad person or screwed up. Often, like I'm not safe. But the great insight that I've had recently for myself is that I'm the world is looking at me with compassion and saying, yes, I see that you're suffering. I'm so sorry. It's the way the world is made. Laws of physics are such that things fall and structures break. and it happens in ways that are uncontrollable. And I can't protect you from that all the time. Like it's part of the experience, and it's tragic. It can be, and it's not always tragic. Sometimes it's celebratory. But for me, I've associated those moments of breakdown with, I've got to improve. I'm not accepted as I am. I got to be different. And as I've been able to realize that voice in my head of having to be different to fix a situation, as that's gone away, I still have these challenges. Still living in a world where climate change is terrifying, and the way that we talk to each other is also terrifying. And these are problems that I don't know that I'll ever be able to come to peace with, but I can become more tranquil as I do things like this phone bank and get involved with people in my life to talk to strangers and bring in my friends and communicate about what's important to me. It gives me a sense that I'm living my truth and complete in my life. And the world is not fixed, right? It's not done. But there's a separation between my tranquility and my physical well-being and emotional well-being. Someone might leave me in a relationship, or I might lose a family member. My emotional well-being is thrown way off. And that's not wrong at all. It's part of what we're experiencing. I don't think any study into spirituality can fix that. In fact, what it reminds me of is that in the Western culture, at least my experience of it, is there's a sense of trying to get rid of grief. What can I do to avoid feeling bad, feeling lost, and never have to even create systems? Like I just went to see Ray Kurzweil speak. Ray is sort of a mentor for me. I mean, he doesn't really know me, but I did work for him for a little bit remotely, and he studies the future. And but one of his driving motivations is to download our consciousness to the cloud, so that we can live on and become cyber beings. Like that's going to happen, according to him. And every time I see him talk about this, I'm like, but why? What's missing for you right now that you want to extend this? What's so valuable that it's not enough, right? Like this one lifetime is not enough. I'm not sure that we have awareness of what's really worth living for in our daily life. And when we do maybe learn about what's really valuable, it has to do partly with what's limited in time, who we're going to lose, what's going to change. So I'm not on board with this notion that we should somehow just objectively improve the quality of life. The quality of life can be, if it's based on tranquility and inner experience, I'm not sure how connected it is to circumstances.
I feel like I want to mail Kurzweil a copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is actually the first piece of literature ever recorded. It was written on stone tablets, and it's a story about Gilgamesh, and his friend dies, and in his grief, he goes on this quest to solve mortality and in search of immortality. And he essentially just runs himself in the ground, searching for something that may or may not exist and may or may not be helpful, even if even if he did find it. And the moral of the first piece of literature ever written is that mortality is what gives value to life.
Yes, that's beautiful.
So
I like what
Kurzweil is not new.
I love that you took searching for something that even when you get it, you're not sure what the value is really going to be.
Which is true for anything.
Yeah, we think I get attached to what is the current necessary thing for me to do or to have. And it's probably some feeling in my body, some urgency, some reason why. I don't know, it could be anything, whether it's a new phone that you want or experience of vacation or a job. For me, I get really caught up in getting something published, as an author or musician, it's like when something's out in the world and it gets to be seen, I attach myself to it, identify with it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so with that identification, the condition that I'm going to be seeing myself differently based upon how this thing I've done ends up evolving in the world, getting received. I mean, when you see it that way, it's an obvious setup for failure, for frustration. You don't have any control over who says what. And so, I mean, as a musician, I've played music for over 40 years. And there's a sense of looking back on that time, what I would tell myself then, if I really could go back and talk to myself, is use this as a way to feel connected to people or good about yourself in other people's eyes. Use this as a way to be connected to yourself.
In my work as a meditation teacher, I and with, the passion that I have for this experience of being alive, which is akin to transcendence, really. I just call it being alive because it's something that I think we can think back to moments that we felt alive in our lives. But I always like to ask people, I always set up, because everyone that I meet, almost without fail, has some degree of guilt or shame around their meditation practice. So I always like to demonstrate to people that meditation is not just sitting on the cushion in the darkened room. That
Right.
meditation can be, there's this whole spectrum of what meditation is, and it's less about what we're doing with our body and more about the quality of our mind. So I always ask people, tell me something in your life that when you do it, you lose track of time, your problems seem to
Mhm.
lift from your shoulders, and you feel this flow of positive energy, and you feel like you're in the pleasant present moment. And I would say probably the top answer that I've gotten at, I've probably asked over 500 people plus this question, is playing music.
Mm.
And it's so interesting that if you could go back and tell yourself to not make it about the accolades or about other people, if you could just tell yourself to just be in the music, to be the music, and then that uplifts everything, and that uplifts, and I think that leads us to these other maybe more egocentric desires that we can. But as an expert in this sense of flow, and then the results that come from that, right, in like in physics, for example, and with energy, it's interesting to hear you say that there's still that thread of, I'm in flow when I'm playing music, but I also want to get published, but I also want to do this.
Yes, for sure. Um, I gave a talk, a TEDx talk, this past year, and it was kind of out of the blue. I was very excited to have it happen, and it was very helpful for me to see myself show up without that attachment. That's how I knew I was in my element, because I was, you know, appearing as I appear without being able to control myself perfectly, about my body perfectly, and that deconstructed my own self awareness of like, I got to look a certain way. And it helped me. I just automatically was able to say, here I am teaching this topic that I love to talk about with people. That's so fun. And it was, just everything dropped away. And I was coming from that timeless unity place, fully present with the people I was with, and not reflecting back on myself. This is something that I think is important to recognize, or to experience, and to distinguish this idea, this sense of duality consciousness, being in the world where we see things outside of ourselves as separate, in which case we might need to attach to them. This my wife is, different, separate from me, obviously. So then I have to attach to what it's going to make her happy. That's going to make me feel like I'm being a good partner, or being on an interview or writing a book. Like, if I see the world outside me as truly separate and part of this duality, then I'm going to look at, what do I need to do to please my audience. It takes me back to 7th grade, where I'm like, okay, these kids that I'm friends with are separate from me, right? I don't feel safe with them. What do I need to do for them to like me? So I'm scanning the environment for clues as to who do I need to be in order to be safe, be loved, and get what I want. That's the duality consciousness. And for me, that's been sort of the normal state of affairs. I don't even notice it. I'm just immersed in the washing machine, making breakfast and eating my nourishment, going to work, to driving the car. All this is just the normal daily life. We get caught up in that, and we don't realize we're just immersed in trying to adjust to who we're supposed to be. The other experience I have, which is the contrasting experience, is what might be called unity. I mean, I'm just naming this because I think that's what it's called in literature. But what it feels different is that these are moments when I see the world directly in front of me, see the world exactly what's there. And it's not a cognitive thing. It's an experience of presence, which I think came first from meditation. Like the world, I don't perceive there to be an outside world that's happening independent of me. There's still a physical separation, right, between me and the wall, but I don't perceive it to be independent of me. So for an example of this, I first had one of my memories of this is like being in a room when I was in college. I think I was, living on my own, and I was doing some meditation and other kinds of experimentation, and I was in a normal state of mind, and having prepped myself for this experience, I just looked at the wall, and I saw a picture. I was staying in someone's house. There's a picture of this Bob Dylan cover of an album, and he's standing there. I forget the album name, and he's got his banjo, guitar. He's looking at you like this. And I had this experience of he's smiling at me. The universe is smiling at me through him. So from the duality consciousness, it's just a picture of him, the Bob Dylan, that was taken 20 years ago, hanging on the wall. From a unity consciousness, it's an experience right then of me being loved. And that's the difference. It's like this symbolic way in which the universe is communicating to us through our relationships, to the symbols in our lives. And with that in mind, what's beautiful about that is I think that the symbol, if I were to define the symbol of the universe, what's the nature of the universe? It's just a big smiley face. I try to remember that when I'm caught up in my personal struggles, because they're not wrong, they're not untrue. They're not the universe's expectation that I should be doing that, right? The universe is smiling at me. The universe is happy I'm around, sorry for my suffering, understands that what I'm doing is part of my journey for me, and it's also stuff that's happening to me that I can't control, and all that. It's all the universe is just, wow, you're beautiful. How can I help? And when that's the universe, then where does the rest of the angst come from? It's coming from lots of places. From me, my relationship to my attachments, but none of them are core. None of those things are fundamental. So there's a beauty in that, to feel fundamentally supported in the cosmos while we do this work, whatever that is for us in the world. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does. It makes me think of the 4 elements of symbolic immortality. So, humans naturally fear death, right? And so there are, I believe, 4 main ways that we pursue. We know that we can't actually live forever. So we, throughout our lives, consciously and subconsciously, we pursue these paths of symbolic immortality. The first way is through procreation, right? We have a child, that child has our DNA, then that child perhaps has children, and so we know that some element of us goes on. The second way is through religion, right? And it's religion. That's how the theory was set out. I think it's more spirituality, because when we subscribe to certain facets of religion and spirituality, we're given the understanding that we go on, that we never really die. Maybe we go to heaven, or we get to come back,
Yeah.
and our energy never dies. The third way is through our works. So we want to write a book, because that book is this tangible thing that is always going to exist to some degree, even when we've croaked and we're on. And the fourth way that we pursue symbolic immortality is through nature. And I just love what you're talking about with this idea of unitive consciousness, or unity consciousness, and our connection to the cosmos, and this relationship that you're describing with the universe, where this notion of this compassionate universe, whether it's a story I tell myself or scientifically proven, is almost, to me, it's just this: the universe cares about me. I'm connected to the universe. Yeah, I'm connected to Bob Dylan on the wall smiling at me. I'm connected to all these people that have different political views than me. It's this connection, and the idea of
Yeah.
the way through nature that we achieve this symbolic immortality is recognizing that, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We're going to die, we're going to go in the ground, and then maybe one day some grass will spring up, or a tree, and then, the bug. And then also that we are
Indeed.
star matter, right? Where we have some of the same
Yeah.
building blocks as stars, and that just makes us feel connected to everything. And I think all of
They're
those
just
ways
teaching
that
and scientific teaching.
Oh yeah, or spiritual as well. And
Yeah.
I just when you speak about this connection with the universe and with everyone else, it's just like I come out of the washing. I literally had a vision of me sitting on the edge of the washing machine, like a little tiny doll version of me, and I just have my feet in the washing machine. Like, I have to do my dentist appointment, and I have to, brush my teeth, and all of these things. But my feet are in the washing machine, but I'm looking down into it, and I'm seeing this greater meaning. And I think if we get too involved in the details and what's like objectively in our vision in life, I know I can speak for myself. That's when I suffer.
Well, that's a really relevant point for me. You just reconnected me with my own version of like how my suffering, which is like thinking I have a vision for how I want to experience the world differently. Not me personally, but I want to see systems of racism diminished. I see systems of bias of all kinds understood and seen as they happen, so we can be aware of our own participation. I want to see the ability to solve climate change and treat people um, with equity financially, and have these systems, all these things that we can improve on in the world. At least those are the ones that I focus on. There are many others that other people would identify with, care about. And I described what the problem is, but my point was what am I trying to get to? Remind me what you were saying.
You said that it had given you a new perspective on your suffering, in that when
Oh,
you're
my
you're
suffering.
trying to change the world, and then but
Yeah. And so I identify with how the world's supposed to be better and what I can do to make that happen. And then I fail at my desire to do that in some way. Like I got this phone banking thing I'm going to do this week, and I'm identified with it going well. And if it doesn't go well, what's the impact on me? How do I identify myself? Do I get hopeless when I see things in the world unfold politically in a way that's confusing or negative? I get hopeless or helpless, or maybe the deeper understanding that comes sometimes for me is it's the lack of solution, in my ability to sit with a lack of solution, to realize I don't have an answer, that I have grief in its place, to be at peace with that, and be able to speak from that place to others is more healing than if I could somehow have an answer. And so then I realize by failing, I'm in the midst of the process of healing.
I
And that's the work. It's not becoming better and better at what we do out in the world skillfully, which is important. It's how we deal with, I think life synchronicity is a process of synchronicity in which the physical world not only allows us to suffer, but brings us problems. When we're problem free, it's going to bring us something, because there's something about the process of growth and improvement and evolution that requires friction.
Friction.
So if I'm experiencing, one of the things that tenses me up the most is like knowing that there's going to be some problem that's out of the blue that's ridiculous. And why is it happening to me? Why does my audio never work on stage? Damn it. But recognizing that as the synchronicity, then I see it as the smiley face of the universe going, your audio is not working. So, and so detaching from the cognitive expectation that we have of how we're supposed to be in the world, how the world's supposed to be, allows for more fluidity in our relationships, at least in mine, and flexibility and connection. And I think regarding the question of what is a meditation practice, I remember doing a retreat where I was actually leading a teen retreat in my 20s. It was a meditation retreat. And it was like a 4-day retreat, I think, overnight. I was so altered by the end, so blissed out on having not spoken for 4 days, that I had the experience of like, I don't want to come back here to this place to have this experience. Right here and now, I want to have this experience all the time. This is not something that like, I don't want to go back to my life and get busy in the world and do my job and get tensed out and stressed out and think that the world is all about one set of goals and get lost in that expectations of who I should be different. I want to come back to this place of unity awareness where the world is right in front of me. I'm experiencing direct communication with sort of my soul, like, which is a loving communication rather than a defensive. In this dual consciousness, I feel defensive. Problems that come are coming at me. I'm like, I got to deal with that, blocking myself. So there's a separateness, a sense of adjusting to the world. In the unity consciousness, the problem is just part of my soul happening. And how do I respond to it? I feel the feelings that I'm feeling in this, whatever the relationship is right now, my car breaking down. So let me tell you a story about my car breaking down.
Please.
I was going to a talk and I was, how much context do I need? My wife was out of town. My daughter was at camp or something. So I was free. And I was like, it's nice to have this space in my day. I'm driving 2 hours to get to this talk. So I'm like, I'm going to go early and actually be hopefully on time, hopefully early, at least on time, because I'm usually late, just so you know. And so I go early, like 3 or 4 hours early, and it's a long drive to get there. So I arrive, I park outside on the street. It's a sunny day, and I'm like, I got plenty of time. I'm going to practice my talk. Get on my computer and I start working on like my slides. Going to make my talk really good. I'm going to be really practiced and ready. And so I'm in that mindset of duality, right? Where I'm thinking about the audience and what they're going to get from me and how I need to make sure that they see me well, make sure I say the right things so that the stories matter to them and the questions make sense. And I go to start my car to move it into the shade or something, and the battery's dead. So my battery dies just before this talk. I still have 2 hours, but I got to fix my battery before nighttime. So I can't wait till after the talk and come out and like deal with my battery. So suddenly the problem switched me from this forward future thinking mentality. How do I please these people? How do I show up in the right way? To being completely present in the moment. My car is talking to me. I'm out of, you got to deal with me right now. This is right here. And what's beautiful is that there's a certain um, peace and ease and relief for me that comes with getting sucked back into unity consciousness. There's something happening right here that has nothing to do with you and your self value, but it has to be solved, and you're the one to solve it. And to me, that's the universe smiling at me, saying, "Here you go, Sky. Help solve this. You're not the problem. You're the solution. And show up and contribute." And the unity consciousness brings me out of my inner dialogue and just present into the situation. So in that moment, I'm like, clearly working on my slides is not the way to get more connected people here. I could call AAA. I called the towing company, but I also said, you know what? I should get out of my car. There's people on the street. I can maybe see what happens. So I just cracked the seal on my door and opened the door, right? It's this symbolic moment. And I felt the symbolism. Put away my computer, crack open the door, and step outside.
Mm.
And there's a woman walking down the street, and I say, "Excuse me." And she lived on that street. "I'm stuck. Do you know of anybody that has a charger for the car?" She says, "I don't, but what are you here for?" So I tell her about my talk and the book I wrote, and we get this great conversation. She's really interested. And I'm like, this is a much more powerful experience than sitting in my car prepping the talk. And so I have a real experience of connection and joy and happiness talking to this woman on the street that never would have happened. And then a woman passes by and stops the car and rolls down her window, and I think she's going to offer to help me. And she says, "Do you know the way to the freeway?" I'm like, "I'm the one that needs help here." "Okay, so you need help." "Yeah, I think it's down that way. And by the way, you're invited to my talk this afternoon." And she says, "Well, I'm just here visiting my son." It was an elderly lady. And yeah, I could stick around and come back. I'm going to go get a sandwich. By the way, do you want a sandwich? This literally happened. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. So I'll see you at 6:00. Come back. We'll have sandwiches and I'll give the talk. I still didn't have my car fixed. So I texted a friend who I knew was going to come to the talk and said, we're going to have dinner beforehand. And I said, I can't have dinner. I'm stuck. I forget exactly how it happened, but she ended up coming to the talk and just had all these experiences of community coalescing around me. And the talk was successful because of that.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was going to happen 2 hours before. So that problem is like the universe is just smiling and laughing like, okay, here's the solution to your problem. I'm going to make your car break down. I'm going to get out of the car. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to bring them in. And you're going to see that you didn't solve it through mental effort. You solved it through trusting in the flow of your life and immersing yourself in the experience that you're having without the resistance that you normally have. And like, no, I got to be doing this, not this. I got to choose with my mind. I got to be in control. All that was shown to be not the way to solve the problem that I had. And I learned much more about the value of that connection that I had with these people and my skill too. I see my skill at doing that. And I lack skills in other areas, but it helped me see there's a real value in being willing to be present and take the challenge in front of me at face value rather than try to, ignore it. How often do we say, this thing is so frustrating. I got to just get it out of the way so I can get back to this other important thing. But being in flow is a way for me to recognize that what's happening that I'm frustrated with is the thing I'm going to get value from if it's present.
What a beautiful story. Oh my gosh. And then you took that energy with you into the talk, having met this person, got offered a
Yeah.
sandwich, right? All these things. It makes me think
Sure.
about how, I'm a terrible dancer. Like I don't have the moves. I'm not that great. But people always come up to me and tell me that I'm a good dancer. And I think it's because when I'm out on the dance floor, I'm just like, I'll just let it fly, right? Like I'm just in the moment. I'm just feeling the music. I'm in it. So even though I'm objectively a terrible dancer, I think people see the X factor, which is just that I'm like, I'm fully in it, and that's attractive to people. And so I think the universe in your case that day was like, oh, you think your slides are the X factor, Sky? Let me show you the real X factor. And it's being lit up by all this magic.
Yes.
Really, you
Yes.
just had your eyes open to all the magic. And then I guaranteed that you brought that sense of magic and presence and joy into your speech and just knocked him dead that day.
Totally. So fast forwarding to now and applying it to my life today, because I'm in the midst of a struggle myself right now. And the X factor is important. So seeing that my way of approaching my goals, like having people come and do this phone making with me, is the same way. I'm going to plan it out really well, make it clear, and appeal to people's minds about what am I supposed to do here, what's the value, what to expect, why it's important, why they should do it. And I got stuck with like not having had enough time to plan it. And last night, it was late at night. I was not able to keep working on it because it was late. And I was like, what is the way that I can't see here? I'm caught up in a very familiar, tense experience of self-judgment and fear, panic. Like there's no way out. Rather than get caught up in how am I going to solve this, which is like me sitting in the car, who's going to jump start my car? I was able to have enough compassion for myself to see the smiley face of the universe, looking at me, not going like, you screwed this up, but like, yeah, you kind of screwed up. Like, it's not saying I didn't screw up. I clearly did. Like, I know I didn't manage my time well or whatever it is, but it's not a judgment. It's a smiley. I'm laughing at myself.
It is.
And at that moment, one of the people I had been calling to talk to texted me back and said, I am happy to help. I can't come, but let me know. And I just, in that unity consciousness that I dropped into, because I was being present with my experience rather than trying to solve the experience, I recognized that as a synchronicity. I was present in this moment, and so I could call in a response. The text of that person was just at the right time. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And in my trusting state, I was seeing that as the next thing I could do. I was grateful for a next step. Like I didn't have a solution for the big problem, but I could see a next step. That made me feel grateful. So I took that next step. I texted him back and I said, yeah, I need help. I'm stuck. I feel judgmental, panicked. I don't know how to do this differently than I have in the past. And just saying I need help with this is like huge vulnerability for me. I've got this vision, got this ideal that I want to reach. It's so clear that we can get there, but I'm failing at it. And I need help.
Mm.
And he said, yeah, sure. He called me. He said, what's the problem? I talked about around the problem for a minute, and then we got closer into like, I'm scared. Not sure how to achieve this goal, what it means for me in my life, in the world. And I don't think I need actually talking help. I think I need physical help. Can you help me reach out to people in my circle tomorrow and enroll them and come into this phone bank? It's the first time I've ever done that. Can you help me? Maybe not the first.
Wow.
Felt like the first. It's a total shift from like, I got to do this thing. I got to be big enough and good enough to execute my vision. And by saying, here's a way that you can help me, I was actually enrolling him, not in the workshop, but in my life, in helping me, my vision. Knowing he couldn't come to the workshop, right? But I'm enrolling him in my vision. It became clear to me at that moment that that's the underlying piece, what I'm trying to do. It's hard for me, not the filling up the workshop, but enrolling people in the vision of my life, our lives. And so, and by doing that, I felt connected. I wasn't isolated and terrified. I was connected to this person, and he understood my feelings, and I didn't feel alone, and he was willing to help. And it was a stretch for him, right? He said, my day tomorrow is crazy. He looked at his whole schedule. Here's the times that I can make some calls, and in that process, I went from being like, I'm going to solve this problem out in the world to he and I are addressing our schedules so we can actually do some work together. Much more down to earth and connected to me than the cognitive idea that I got to fix something in the world. So that's my learning. And the learning is not necessarily to have the workshop go well, but it's to learn along the way what's the habitual way that I disconnect and give up.
And the that edge, that fear that you felt, that vulnerability, it was like the first time I had ever asked for help. It was like a part of my chest cracked open. That's, I think, how we know that that's a new edge for us. And like
Mm.
you said, that's where the work is.
Yeah, my chest cracked open. And before that, when that was all closed, I just saw through these lenses. Saw
Intense
your
in there.
eyes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What a terrifying place to be.
Yeah.
All the world is coming at us. There's the social political world, the economic world, the weather, the way our lives are not happening the way we want. Our job is crazy. Our relationships are whatever they are. It's all just like I want to control it, but the terrifying look on your eyes for a minute was great. That's how I feel
Yeah.
most of the time. But when I can drop into that connection with my heart and see like I'm being challenged to fix this problem, right? Life is challenging me to fix this problem. But the real challenge is how do I handle it when I realize my limitations? And then my heart cracks open and I see the X factor.
Yeah. The magic.
And here's the thing. You can't see it if you're not in it. You can think I should be in my heart right now, but I'm in my fear. I'm stuck on analyzing and dissecting and trying to become loved rather than experiencing love. So that's the difference in the dual. I'm separate from the world. I got to defend against it and protect myself and respond to people's expectations versus the unity experience of I'm really in relationship with what's happening right in front of me. Not just the people, but the situation. It's not happening to me as a judgment of my choices, even when I screw up and something goes wrong. It's not happening to me as a judgment of my choices. It's happening with me to elicit tenderness, the X factor, my aliveness, my life force, which we can't describe. In this conversation, it's come through a number of times. The feeling of, yes, we're here.
Woo! Yeah. Yeah, let me have you hold 1 second because I wanna get something. We're coming to the end of our time, but I wanna close because you've just given such a powerful visual. So hold one for about 5-10 seconds. So I should have worn these earrings today. Uh But this is the vibe that we're going for, and this has just been such an inspiring aspect of the conversation because I've never gotten this concept, or I've never entertained this concept that the universe is a smiley face, and even when I feel like I'm getting shit on by the universe is still smiling like, "Can you see the absurdity? Can you see what you're being called to
Yeah,
do here?" And then even when I'm feeling alive and I'm feeling bliss and awe, then we have that compassionate smile face. And so this is just,
yeah,
I just want to
it's
thank you
great.
for this. And this is something that, it's like I feel like I'm gonna be looking up at the sky from here on out, and sometimes I'll just see this smile face looking down on me, and it's like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, you got me. You
Great.
got me." So, oh my goodness, thank you so
You know,
much.
I have this experience sometimes, like in moments in my naps when I'm like kind of awake, but my eyes are closed. And it happens in my mind when I'm just awake too. But somebody in my field of view is smiling at me, and I can't help but smile back.
Yeah.
When I see the world smiling at me, I can't help but smile back. No
Mhm.
matter what's going on, this lightness comes over me. So I'm visualizing that too.
Yeah. Smiley faces. I actually have a tattoo of a smile. It's my only tattoo. I call it my prison tattoo. But on the inside of my ring finger, I have this very
Wow.
janky smiley face tattoo. It's just a little bit of whimsicality, and it's taken on a new meaning for me today.
That's
And
brilliant.
yeah, so
What are the chances that
Sky,
we have this conversation?
I know, right? And you happen to
Yeah,
just bring up
exactly.
that incredible metaphor, and I don't even wanna call it a metaphor, like, I literally now that's a new facet of the universe for me is this smile face, and we can't help but smile back. There's that old I can't remember who said it, I wonder if it was Marcus Aurelius, "Death smiles at us, all we can do is smile back." And death
Yeah.
smiles at us, life, the universe, it's all a big cosmic joke,
My
and it's
wife when
hard
she's
and
angry at me, my
complicated.
daughter when she wants she's embarrassed by me. It's all the universe smiling at me.
Yeah, yeah. Mm. So we leave with the image of the smiley face today. Sky, it's been a pleasure. So Sky has a book that is being re-released right now called Leap to Wholeness: How the World is Programmed to Help Us Grow, Heal, and Adapt. And if today's conversation wasn't enough of a whet to your appetite to learn about how to go through life feeling like things are smiling at us as opposed to, raining coal on our head, then I don't know what is,
Good,
but get that book. And is
good.
there anything else that you wanna share that you're working on that people can find and connect with you?
All my videos and stuff are at synchronicityinstitute.com. I have a lot of great animations and creative stuff that comes out of me. I just put out there, and I love it when we get to talk about it and share it. So there's a lot on the synchronicityinstitute.com website. I have a free online course on flow called livinginflowcourse.com. So check those things out and
Beautiful, and I'll be
get
oh,
involved in
go
your
ahead.
community. Well, get involved. I'm leading this filmmaking tomorrow, so I'm just going to say, get involved in your community and talk to people. Get involved as a volunteer. Don't let the political winds just blow over you. Contribute. For me, it takes me from feeling helpless to feeling bonded with the people I'm talking to.
Yeah. It might feel big, but these small acts, they feel good for us, and they do make a difference, and I'll be thinking about you and this vulnerability journey that you're on with the phone bank, and again, thank you so much for coming and sharing your energy and your wisdom today. And yeah, follow Sky, check out Synchronicity Institute, and thank you for listening, everyone. And Sky, thank you again for being here today.
Thanks, Kate, and thanks, audience. Great to meet you.
Thank you for tuning in to Be Alive with Kate Manser. It's an honor. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, subscribe, share this episode with somebody who needs a little dose of inspiration in their life. Definitely review the show on whatever platform you're listening to. And you can always check out katemanser.com for my up-to-date coaching offerings and other goodies. Check out my book, You Might Die Tomorrow, my workbook, The Alive Workbook. I have a children's book called You Are the Cyan Ocean. All the things. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. It is truly, seriously, genuinely an honor to spend time with you and to have the honor of being in your ears and your eyes. Take care. Lots of love.